Hey everyone, today I'm bringing you a wonderful work. This one is really good. This is the story of a boy in a girls' school. Anyone who knows this story knows that this manhwa is very good. I think this is the manhwa with the most different waifus. Now let's get to the video. Have you ever thought about studying in a girls' school composed of beautiful girls? But there's a catch. They will do everything to get you out of there, a poor teenager. He ends up being transferred to this school. But what awaits him, hell or paradise? The story begins with Feng, our protagonist, chasing after a bandit. He and his friend give the criminal a beating. A friend congratulates them for recovering the victim's bag. While they're talking, they miss another friend who is with them. Then they realize that he is hitting on the girl who is robbed. His friends arrive and beat him up. The girl politely says her name and mentions that she studies at Chongnam Girls' School and invites the protagonist to have dinner with her. Feng refuses and says that she should go back to her house carefully. Back at home, we see more about his family. Feng has a younger sister. Although they are neither rich nor poor, they manage to live a quiet life when he arrives in his parents' room. He sees that they are there, sitting on the sofa. Then they say that they need to have a serious conversation with Feng. His father said that his son is already 18 years old, and that he now needs to take responsibility for taking care of his mother and sister. He thinks his father is sick and then starts to cry. But then his mother explains that 10 years ago his father took out a loan from the bank, and the interest made the debt reach $100,000. Now he needs to find a job in the Middle East, where the salaries are good, so he can pay off this debt. Therefore, he needed his son to take care of his family. At that time, Feng said that the Middle East is a dangerous place, and that there should be another way to get that money. And that's what his parents wanted to hear. They had already devised a plan to make their son study at Chongnam Girls' School, and he doesn't understand what this has to do with it. His mother then explains that she studied with the school principal, and the principal said that he could earn a scholarship for studying there. If he accepted, his sister could also enroll in the school, and this would solve the debt problem. And on top of that, there would be a great education for his little sister. So he ends up accepting, even knowing the bad reputation of the school where the students hate boys. He remembers the times he passed in front of the school and saw the boys asking for help. And this wasn't just once, it was several times. Feng decided to tell his sister this news, so he tells her that they will both study at Chongnam School. She said she already knew and asked him not to call her sister at school. During the night, he has a nightmare with this school, making him wake up. Scared, his mother says that he needs to go talk to the principal, so he goes. He is surprised by the place. Several people inside the school wish him luck. He gets tense when he hears these comments, entering the school and finally reaches the principal's office. When he turns around, he is surprised that she's very attractive. She says she has known him since he was a baby. The principal then hands him a confidentiality document. Feng should obey the school rules and not reveal anything that happened there. The second rule was very important. Do not use violence against the girls, and do not have romantic relationships. She says that all the boys who enrolled there before him only came to flirt. So he asks if, by chance, they attack him, what should he do? Take it like a coward. The principal says that self-defense is fine. He asks why a girls' school started accepting boys, and the reason is that the girls there have not learned to interact with boys, since they have never had contact. That's why they were now trying to change that. And she asks him to do his best to win the girls' trust. On the way out, the principal tells him to leave his suitcase in the dormitory and explains that he shouldn't get close to the old building, as it is a restricted area. Feng goes to the male dormitory and is enchanted by the view from the window. He sees a very beautiful place near the lake, so he decides to go there. Upon arriving, he sees a female uniform under a sword, and when he least expects it, a girl emerges from the lake. Feng can't help but stare. The girl gets scared and starts screaming, wondering why there's a man there. He tries to explain, but when she picks up the sword, he runs away and flees. Later, he meets his friends. They joke, saying they're surprised that he is still alive, then take a picture to record what his appearance was like in case he becomes unrecognizable. He then says that he has two pieces of news for Feng. The first is that the school has a lot of beautiful girls, and the second is that they are all like roses with thorns. Several students were defeated by them, and among them all there are 4 evil leaders who will do everything to make him give up studying there. The protagonist then prepares himself, puts on a cool wig, a chic suit, and makeup simulating injuries so that no girl has the courage to look for trouble with him. Arriving at the school, he only sees beautiful and imported cars, and at the entrance is the girl that he saw in a bikini the day before. He gets terrified and then decides to jump the wall inside the school. The teacher decides to introduce him to the class. He makes a speech to scare the girls, saying that his hobby is fighting and slicing people, that the last one who messed with him today has 3 kilometers of grass growing over his grave, and then makes a disdainful face. But that didn't scare anyone. It was just ridiculous. The teacher tells him to sit next to Renil and he finds that name familiar. The room becomes silent because of him. Then the protagonist decides to find these 4 evil leaders. Maya, Wei Wei, Tong Fei, Xiao Chui. Looking to the side, he recognizes the girl with pink hair, but she says she doesn't know him and for him to look the other way. Already in the student council room, the president of the council, Lan, the principal's daughter, says that they need to find some way to defeat the new student, and that all they need is to give it some time, and that the evil leaders will take care of him. Returning to the classroom, the teacher asks Feng and Chuxia Ye to go get the new books, but Chuxia Ye doesn't want to go and sends her friend in her place. The protagonist realizes that the girl there is being intimidated, so he strikes up a conversation with her, however she tells him not to talk to her there. He understands that if she is seen having friendship with a boy, she would be persecuted in the same way that he is. Upon leaving the classroom, she apologizes for the rudeness. He said that it's okay and that he only hopes that she doesn't set anything against him. The girl swears she won't do anything. Inside the room, the evil ones notice that the new student came prepared. San Shui says that she thinks it's better to leave him alone and let him have a quiet year of study. The other girls are surprised and disagree. They say that they will continue with the plan, but that they should take some care. One of them offers Feng a juice. He thanks her and says that he will drink it later. However, he was already smart and knew that it was a trap, so he saves the juice. At the end of the class, the lazy girl takes advantage of her friend again and leaves her cleaning the room alone because she says she is feeling sick. So the protagonist decides to help her, and he said that if she needs help secretly, she could count on him. Arriving home, Feng prepares for a bath, and when he least expects it, the girl from the day before, the one in the bikini, appears there catching him off guard. She also takes him by surprise and then starts screaming. The protagonist asks her not to scream, and unintentionally he knocks her to the ground while trying to cover her mouth, but they end up getting too close. Then she hits him in his private parts and it completely destroys him. She calls him various names, and he retorts saying that she was the one who entered his room by surprise. Then she asks him to face her in a duel since he humiliated her twice. She couldn't let him get away with it. He argues back, saying that each of them saw the other naked at least once, so they were even. The girl shouts for him to put something on quickly. She will wait for him at midnight in the training room. If he doesn't show up, he will suffer severe consequences. Feng stares at her and goes. Upon arriving at the place, the girl says she imagined that he wouldn't dare to miss it, and if he didn't come, his body would sink in Tokyo Bay. Feng tells her to end this quickly since he wants to go to bed early. She said that he doesn't need to worry because he'll be bedridden for at least a month when this is over. Then he mocks her and she goes for him at full speed. The girl's movements are fast, but the protagonist is faster, and when she least expects it, he is already behind her. Feng holds her very tightly, immobilizing her. He blows in her ear, leaving the girl with flushed cheeks. Then he disarms her, thus winning the duel. Upon leaving, he says that if she bothers him again, he will fight seriously. The girl, dying of anger, says that she'll defeat him next time. Already in his dormitory, Feng has a bad feeling because of what happened, but he forgets about it and goes to sleep. The next day, he sees the 4 evil leaders in his room. He ignores them. Until lunchtime, the cafeteria is full of delicious food. However, all the students stare at him, leaving the atmosphere tense. When they finally find a place to sit, a girl with enchanting eyes appears, saying that he sat in her seat. He falls hopelessly in love, so he apologizes. She disdains him, telling him to leave and not bother her. Then he changes chairs and she says that all the places around her belong to her. Then he sits right in front of her and asks if she is capable of kicking him out. All the students around are shocked that he is standing up to her. Then the mysterious girl says she found him interesting. Feng thinks about eating quickly and getting out of there as quickly as possible. Then a gigantic banquet is served there for her, leaving him surprised. He starts to get worried about having caused too much trouble with someone important, his pink-haired friend. She hands him a note with her phone number and then leaves. Back in his dormitory, he talks to her on the phone. She says that he has caused a huge problem. The girl he offended comes from a powerful family, and her name is Chuxia Ye, and says that he should apologize to her and hope that she doesn't take revenge on him. He says that the offense has already been done, then hangs up the phone. Rich, powerful, gang leader, all of this caused him a lot of fear, but what could she do to him? Castrate him, he wonders. At that moment, someone appears from outside his room and throws a sleeping gas, causing Feng to faint and fall to the ground. When he wakes up, he sees a scary guy watching him. Feng is tied up, and the kidnapper says that he was informed that the protagonist was harassing a girl, so he would have to be castrated. Feng is desperate and starts screaming. Then, someone passing by outside in the hallway hears the noise. Then they start knocking on the door. The kidnapper turns around annoyed because someone is hindering his work, and when he least expects it, the door collapses on his face. The girl who appeared for the rescue was the same one that Feng had seen in a bikini and challenged in a duel. He's afraid that she has come to take revenge, but she helps him and surprises him because of that. The atmosphere there is awkward. She makes it clear that she lost to him in the duel because she had been careless, but that next time she would not lose to a pervert like him. And the protagonist there is speechless with all that, and she insists on going to the training room to battle him again. However, Feng is smart, and pretends to be feeling sick there because of the kidnapping. Then she lets it pass, and the girl shows a little concern for him, asking if he wants help going to the infirmary if he's feeling very bad. And already outside, she is wondering who is that guy who was kidnapping Feng. He boasts about having tricked the girl and admits that she is indeed very pretty. Later that same day, the principal calls him saying that she has something important to tell him, so she goes to his room in person. He is startled when she arrives there. Suddenly the principal says that she has a task for him, and without hearing it, he refuses right from the start. Then she said that they will have to cut costs there at the school, and that the place for this year's excursion will then have to change. However, the girl from his class, Tong Fei, who's one of the evil ones, was the only one who was refusing to go, so the protagonist had to convince her. Then Feng refuses because he is afraid of getting beaten up. Then the principal said that he needs to use his charm. Then the protagonist says that he is a correct man, he would not do something like that. But the principal reveals that the new location for the excursion is a beach. Therefore the girls would be wearing bikinis. Then Feng is stunned there and begins to imagine what it would be like, right? Those beautiful girls on the beach all wearing bikinis. And the principal continues saying that if the school's budget explodes, they will have to cut his scholarship. Then the protagonist becomes very motivated to convince the girls, but of course, it's not because of the bikinis. He needs to convince them so as not to lose his scholarship, of course. Then the principal asks him to try his best, then leaves. Already in the women's bathroom, the evil leaders talk about Feng having escaped Chuxiaye's revenge. The pink-haired one says that the kidnapper was even killed by the boy, and the blue-haired one. Tong Fei says that he seems to be very attentive, since he had not even accepted the drink that she had offered him in the day before. So they will have to change their strategy. The girls choose Tong Fei to be able to seduce him and decide to wait for the right moment to attack. The next day, when he enters the room, he sees the 4 evil leaders there. He needs to convince the blue-haired one, Tong Fei, to go on this excursion to the beach, so he asks her that. She immediately refuses, but her friends step on her foot and give that wink for her to accept, since this will help in their evil plan. Tong Fei accepts, and the protagonist is surprised that it was too easy. He realizes that there is something strange there. He imagines if there is any plan of theirs, however he soon forgets, since the most important thing is to be able to see them in bikinis. After leaving the room, they discuss the reason why he called her to go to the excursion, so they deduce that he is a pervert and is interested in them. The pink-haired one says that if he really has bad intentions, it'll be even easier for them to deal with him. Then Tong Fei realizes that this would really facilitate her plan, and they all get excited there, except for the purple-haired girl because she doesn't want to participate in all of this. Feng then calls the principal and says that he managed to convince Tong Fei, and says that this mission was very difficult, therefore he deserved a prize. The principal said that she'll give him a great reward, then the protagonist is happy, thinking that it could be a delicious food. While he is using his cell phone, he sees an open door in the hallway and decides to snoop around, and for his nightmare, there was Chuxiaye getting changed. Feng is a very unlucky boy, right? Or rather, depending on the point of view, he is a very lucky boy. So he is shocked and thinks that his life there is all ruined now. So she is standing there without showing any reaction. And Feng remembers that the other time she had to send someone to castrate him because of a simple silly thing. So this time she could really order him to be killed. So he had an ace in the hole. He takes out his cell phone and takes several pictures of her and says that if she doesn't want these photos of her to be released, it would be better for her to leave him alone. Chuxiaye takes a grenade and throws it at him, and the protagonist is already there waiting for his death, right? But the grenade doesn't explode. Then she says that this bomb is an anti-data bomb, that now all the files on his cell phone have been erased. Then he takes his cell phone and checks and really erased all the data there. All the photos he had taken of her were erased. The girl says that the security camera filmed everything, from him breaking into the locker room to taking pictures of her, and if she sends it to the police, he would be arrested immediately. He said that now he only has to use his most secret ability, which is to humiliate himself on his knees. Then the girl takes advantage of him and asks him to lick her foot, and the protagonist goes. When he is about to lick her foot, the butler interrupts, saying that it is time for her to go to class. Then Feng makes a pitiful face and she lets him pass. She said that she will spare him, but he will have to obey everything she orders, so the protagonist said yes and leaves. Sweating cold outside, he thanks the butler for saving his face. And the butler pretends that he didn't do anything. His cell phone rings and he gets startled. Tongfei says there in a message that the excursion will leave tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning, and that he needs to sleep early to prepare. Then he's astonished that it is so early, and wonders if it is an excursion or a military training. In the women's dormitory, they're planning the plan. The message had already been sent, therefore Feng would arrive at the agreed location 20 minutes early. The pink-haired one says that it will be easy to deal with this virgin. Tongfei asks how she knows that he has never been with a girl. He could very well be a wild player. Then she retorts saying that Tongfei thinks that all boys are like wild animals, that he only approaches girls because he is already used to it, since he has a sister, and that when she acts, he'll easily fall into her seduction. The next morning he arrives at the marked location. He arrives very early and notices that there is no one there. Then he hears a scream coming from the gym. He runs, and when he gets there he sees Wei Wei, the evil one with pink hair, lying on the floor. Her underwear is on display, leaving Feng with flushed cheeks. He offers help. Then she says that she hurt her foot. He carries her to the infirmary. Then she whispers there in his ear, thanking him. He gets all goosebumps and tries to change the subject, asking why she got hurt. Then she explains that she went to get a towel and ended up bumping into the ball basket. He said that he will call the doctor to apply ointment there on her injury. Wei Wei says that there is no doctor at the school that day, so the protagonist himself would have to apply the ointment, so she immediately stretches out her foot, asking him to apply the ointment with a seductive voice. He gets tense and with flushed cheeks, but says it's okay. She thanks him, saying that he is very kind. Feng quickly applies the ointment and tells her to rest, then leaves, trying as much as possible to appear calm. Wei Wei tells her friends to be able to get out of there from the hiding place. The blue-haired Tongfei gets angry that he didn't try to do anything more with the girl, so she thinks it's better to just go there and beat him up. They discuss that they need to go slowly, as he could be suspicious since he helped Wei Wei today. Next time he wouldn't be so suspicious. Outside, Feng sees the other girls meeting. He finds his sister, but she is still angry with him and even asks him not to talk to her at school. Everyone there gets on the bus, then goes to the excursion. The girls agree to make him sit close to them when they arrive on the plane, and it works. He asks how her foot is, and she thanks him for saving her. Arriving at the airport, they take another bus to get to the hotel. Already at the hotel, they realize that there are not enough rooms for Feng to sleep alone, so Tongfei would have to receive him in her room. Wei Wei says that will be great, and they start whispering a plan. Lan, the protagonist's sister, is alone in her room looking at a photo. Then her cell phone rings. It's a message from a guy saying that he heard that she is in the city on an excursion, and that he went there to tell her about a certain Yao. Already in the room, together with the evil Feng, he's embarrassed there with the silence. He asks if she prefers him to sleep in the hallway, and she says that is much more permissible. Then he gets scared there with her facial expression and decides to leave the room. He changes and goes to the beach, hoping to see some bikinis. However, the beach is empty. He hears someone calling his name, and when he turns around all excited, he sees them dressed in diving suits. Then the protagonist is extremely disappointed. He asks where the bikinis are. Tongfei says that today is diving day. Then he falls sad there on the floor and asks if she is not going to swim either, and the girl replies that she will be supervising them. And the protagonist there is without any reaction. Then Feng sees his sister going somewhere, and he decides to follow her. She meets with Yan Sheng, which makes the protagonist very nervous. The guy said that Lan is very beautiful, and she responds by telling him to say soon about Yao. Then he decides to tell this story. Yao was in love with him, but she knew that he liked Lan, and in order not to break their friendship, he kept everything a secret. After Feng found out, he blackmailed Yao to be able to go out with him, but she refused. Then Feng pushed her down the hill. Lan asks how he found out about all this in detail. At that moment, Feng appears and punches the guy, and he flies far away. Feng tells him to stay away from his sister. The protagonist chokes the guy and threatens him and then throws him on the floor. The guy is trembling with fear and runs away. Lan then asks what her brother is doing there. And the protagonist repeats talking that this guy is not good and for her to stay away from him. Then she responds that she needs to know about Yao, and he says that he argued with Yao and unintentionally he accidentally made her fall down the hill. His sister runs away, calling him a murderer. Feng says that the secret cannot be revealed, and that he hopes that the guy has not told anything that he should not have. Since there were no bikinis there on the beach, he decides to return to the hotel. However, on the other side, Tongfei tells the girls that Feng is no longer nearby, and that they can all take off their diving suits, thus remaining only in bikinis. Feng, in the middle of the road, he feels that he is losing something, but even so, he goes away. The girls take advantage of the beach. The evil ones devise a plan to defeat the protagonist. They will put a drug in his food. At the end of the day, they go to the kitchen to prepare the dish, since he would never accept to eat anything that they give him. Then the red-haired one will distract the cook, so that the blue-haired one puts this drug. Everything goes as planned. Later, at dinner, Wei Wei asks where he was, since they all took off their diving suits, and she would like him to see her in a bikini. He disguises it there, saying that it was a pity, but inside he is burning with anger. One of the girls goes stealthily there and puts drugged food on Feng's tray. Then he eats. Later he says goodbye to Wei Wei and goes to his room. He thinks vaguely about how salty the food was. When he opens the door, he sees Tong Fei lying down, so he also decides to lie down and sleep. She's attentive, waiting for the drug to take effect. Meanwhile, the other three are outside also waiting for the drug to make him attack her, and the three outside would catch him in the act. Another 30 minutes of time for the drug to take effect, pass, and nothing happens. Half an hour also passes, and nothing. He's sleeping like a stone. An hour later, they're already dying of sleep and find it strange that the drug has not had any effect. The next morning, Tong Fei is finished. Feng gets up and sees her sleeping, then decides to have coffee first. When he opens the door, he sees the three sleeping there in the hallway. The protagonist takes them to their rooms, then covers them and goes to have his breakfast. There in the cafeteria, he eats almost all the food. Later, the girls gather to discuss why the drug did not work. They were exhausted. Due to the poorly slept night, they theorized that he must practice meditation, so the drug had no effect. And to be sure that the drug works, the girls were going to test it on someone. They go to a bar to test the effectiveness of the drug. They end up finding the victim, and it is Yan Sheng, the guy who had been beaten by Feng the day before. Wei Wei sits next to him, and they start talking. She finds him very disgusting, and it costs to stay there near him, and when he least expects it, she had already drugged his drink. Then she says goodbye and goes away outside. She complains about how that guy was an idiot and that just wait 5 minutes for the drug to take effect. Time passes, and he appears there on the sidewalk out of his mind. The boy sees Chuxia Ye and her butler, then goes on top of her to attack her. But the butler, he manages to immobilize him. He keeps calling her beautiful while he drools. Chuxia Ye says to take him so that they can investigate what is wrong with this boy. The evil one with red hair said that they can already consider that boy as dead. Meanwhile, Chuxia Ye calls Feng and says that she has a task for him. The protagonist goes to the hotel where she is staying. Arriving there, he is received by his butler. He asks why she needs him. She says she has a case for him to solve. The girl says that she was attacked by a madman in the street. The protagonist makes a joke saying to pity the poor guy. She asks what he said, and Feng makes an excuse. She then orders him to interrogate the harasser along with Lawrence, her butler. He asks what he should do, then it is said for him to just observe. When they arrive, he sees that Wang Chung, the butler, asks if they know each other, and the protagonist says yes, but that they are not intimate. Then the torture begins. 3 hours later, all that ends with the protagonist. He's afraid since Lawrence did not ask any questions, just hit the boy. He reports to Chuxia Ye that the boy seems to be just any pervert and that he was drugged so that he would attack the prota. He wonders how he found out about all that. The butler says that Feng knows the boy, which makes the girl suspicious. Feng says that they hate each other and that he wants to kill that guy for a long time. The girl asks why they hate each other. He gets nervous, then disguises it, saying that the boy there stole his snack. That's why they hate each other. She finds this answer very suspicious, but ends up ignoring it. She says she wants to eat rice with coconut, and for the protagonist to get this fruit. If he doesn't get it, she'll expose his criminal video. The protagonist said that he will complete this task, then runs away. The girl and her butler comment that he is hiding something. Feng says that now that Wang Chung is in the hands of Chuxia Ye, he will not be able to get close to his sister, but he needs to find out what the guy said to Lan, because if she ends up asking something again, he may end up revealing things that he shouldn't. Meanwhile, Nanong, the evil one with purple hair, asks what Ranald thinks of Feng. The pink-haired girl says that she finds him gentle, but avoids talking much about her friend. She says she wants to eat coconut and asks Ranald to arrange it for her. The girl asks if by chance she knows how to cook, and she responds that she'd just bring the ingredients for her to check her culinary skills. In the next room, they discuss the reason why the drug didn't work on Feng. The red-haired girl says that maybe he doesn't like girls. Tong Fei says that it may be that he lost his functions as a man, and this leaves them all embarrassed. Then she said that she will have to test him by going to his room. She asks what Feng will do tomorrow since they will have a free day. He thinks about going to get some coconuts, then the girl sends a message to Wei Wei so they can make a plan. Wei Wei says that all together they will test Feng's functions. Then they whisper about a plan. During the night, someone breaks into the room and messes with Tong Fei's bags. The next day, he goes to get the coconuts. He complains about having to spend this beautiful morning looking for something for a girl like that. The evil ones end up following him when they find a coconut tree. He sees Renel, his pink-haired friend, trying to pick some coconuts, so he decides to help. After picking up some units, the girls arrive and ask what the two are doing there alone. Then he jumps from the tree and responds that he was just collecting coconuts. The girls say that they were playing volleyball, but they needed one more player and that he couldn't refuse. Renil trips and ends up falling on top of Feng. The other students around see and go to check what is happening. Renil apologizes and he says that everything is fine. When the other girls arrive, they see Feng's abs and are delighted. The evil ones take advantage of the opportunity and start provoking him to be able to seduce him. He gets all embarrassed and all of them start wanting to put their hand on his belly. He has no reaction. And the three evil ones say that their hunches were right. That's why the drug didn't have any reaction. He makes an excuse and runs away. He says that he was lucky that he didn't have any reaction, but then it hits him and he realizes that he is too young not to have shown any reaction. And he thinks that the reason for this was the kick he received. Renil arrives at his room with a coconut. Lanong says that Feng's suffering is just beginning and asks Ranul to bring the protagonist to her. Renil asks why all this, and she responds that if he doesn't show up, something terrible will happen to him. Then, she agrees and runs to get the protagonist. At this moment, he wonders what he should do. Then the butler finds him saying that they were waiting. He delivers the coconut and says that he is leaving. The butler shows concerns and said that if he needs any help, he can count on him inside the room. Chusia asks if her butler discovered any more information about that pervert. He responds that he didn't, and that he needs to interrogate him more. They also agree to investigate Feng since he seems very suspicious. Back at the hotel, Ranul waits for Feng at the entrance. She says that Nanong called him to be able to talk about something important. He's scared but ends up accepting. Arriving there, they talk about her being able to help him. As she has the powers to see the future, she could be very useful in helping him, so he begs the girl for help. She says that if he cooks for them, maybe she'll even help him. Then he goes to the kitchen and makes a very beautiful banquet, and when they try it, it is really delicious. He confesses that he learned to cook because his mother's food was terrible. After eating, Feng asks what he needs to do to solve his problem. Nanong says that he has to wait at the entrance of the hotel at midnight, that a man he already knows will appear and this man will be able to help him. The protagonist then goes to the indicated location at midnight and is walking in circles there until someone appears. When Lawrence finally appears, the butler Feng asks if he can count on the butler's help, since someone who can see the future said that someone would appear there and they would help him. He calls the protagonist to sit down. Feng explains everything he's going through, from the problems at school to the girls. Lawrence says that it will not be easy, but that he can help him, but he wants something in return. What he wanted was not difficult. The only thing he asked for is that Feng continue to cause problems for his mistress, Chusia. He's frightened with what he hears and asks if he is serious. The butler confirms and smiles. Feng refuses because he doesn't want to be killed. Then Lawrence says that he doesn't need to worry because he'll protect him, and his mistress needed to be educated, since she was used to everyone serving her and treating her well, but that wouldn't be good for her in the future. That's why she needed someone to stand up to her. The protagonist asks how he would necessarily do that. The butler says that tomorrow they will go to an amusement park, and that the protagonist needs to hinder her in everything she is going to do. Then the protagonist accepts the agreement. He will do everything to hinder the dangerous and mysterious Chuxia. So, the day of the visit to the park finally arrives. Chuxia is complaining about the loud noise of the park, and her butler starts to accompany her to every side, and at the time that she is going to confirm the reading of the bracelet there at the machine. Feng appears to hinder her, since this was his plan, right? He disguises it saying that he didn't know that Lan was there today, and she asks what he is doing there. And he responds that this is a thing of destiny. Yeah, right? Then he asks if she wants to have fun together with him, and she says no, that it's for him to be alone. Then he already starts to get nervous, thinking that his plan will not work. But he has the brilliant idea of inviting her to go on the roller coaster. He imagines that she'll be scared. Then he asks if she has the courage to go with him. She accepts, then they go together on the toy. When they arrive at this toy on the roller coaster, he is dying of fear and starts screaming. Meanwhile, she remains calm, as if nothing was affecting her, and after leaving the toy, he's even feeling sick. Even so, he doesn't give up on the plan and calls her to enter the scary cave there. She even seems happy when she sees these monsters, these ghosts. Meanwhile, he even faints from so much fear, having the butler carry him in his arms. And Feng seems to be very persistent because he accepts to go on the Viking ship with her, and he also faints there and starts crying with fear in all the toys that they go to. Who passes fear there? Who gets desperate as Feng in this last toy there? It seems that even his soul leaves his body for a few seconds. He even said that if it continues like this, he'll probably die. Lawrence, the butler, even asks Chuxia if she's liking the tour, and she responds that it is very boring. Then he says that he thinks it's better for them to rest before going to the next toy. Then he notices in the distance an ice cream cart and decides to go there to buy it for them. On the way back, while he was carrying 4 cones of ice cream, Lawrence puts his foot in front, making him trip. Then he drops all those ice creams on top of Chuxia. He is in shock there, and thinks that that may be his end. Probably he'll already be dead, and she continues there, quiet, without showing any reaction. And he gets all tense, wondering what the heck she's gonna do to him. Then a tear rolls down her cheek as she says the word daddy. The butler pops up right there, while Feng's apologizing like crazy. Then she bursts into tears, with her face and clothes all covered in ice cream. Right then we see a flashback of her as a kid, with ice cream all over her mouth and a woman with her hand on her head. Back in the present, the butler Lawrence says it's time for them to head home, and she leaves crying. When they pass each other, Feng gets a little note saying, "Meet me in the hotel lobby tonight," and the girl walks off all bummed out. Later that night, the butler meets up with the main guy at the agreed spot, and he hands over the pill that he promised as payment. The main guy thinks about asking if the girl's alright, but the butler cuts him off saying, "She's not feeling too hot, is she?" The main guy then slams his hand on the table, calling him a liar, questioning what the butler's really up to, and he retorts, saying that all of this was for the good of his young lady, and that sometimes stimulus therapy can be helpful, and that she deserved a better life than the one she has now, which is covered in shame. Feng just stands there, not understanding anything, and the guy just leaves anyway. At night, we see Chu Xie there. She's having some nightmares while she sleeps. The next day, her butler wakes her up with breakfast. It's 8 o'clock, and he asks her if she slept well, and she tells him to cut the crap. She really seems to be a tough cookie, so she asks if there's any news about that pervert, and the butler says they're still investigating. Then we see what happened to Feng. That night, when he got back to his hotel, he was worried about Chu Xie and about what her butler said when he talked about her living a life covered in shame, but when he got to his room, he saw the students there, and the headmistress too. So right away, he smelled trouble, right? And he started to get nervous. The headmistress said she stopped by after the trip and that she couldn't believe how disgusting he was. So he starts to get even more worried, not understanding at all what's going on. The main guy immediately defends himself, saying that he was out all day, so whatever happened, it wasn't him. The evil leader there with the red hair, she said her belongings were stolen, and he was the only suspect in that room. He said it sounded like a soap opera. So the girl with the blue hair tells him to prove his innocence. He immediately said he'd prove he was innocent, so he opens his bag and inside he sees a pair of panties. And then he starts to tremble with fear. He quickly goes and closes his backpack, and he wonders if what he saw was an illusion, since he was really nervous, so he opens the backpack again, and he really sees that the panties are there. He turns almost purple from how nervous he gets, so they all start attacking him, calling him a pervert. But Nanong, the evil leader with the purple hair, she's thoughtful. She doubts if he's really guilty. Renil, the main guy's friend, is passing by in the hallway and saw a crowd at the door. Even the other girls outside were yelling at him, calling him a pervert, disgusting, a panty thief. And Ranil sees that her friend is being attacked and then decides to help. But at that moment, Lawrence appears, and all the girls there are already super in love with him. So Feng comes out desperate, asking for help, and the butler explains to everyone there what happened. He really had spent the whole day there with him, so they understand that he wouldn't have had time to commit this crime and so still spend the whole day at the park. But they aren't satisfied with that, and say that in fact he's the only suspect. It couldn't have been anyone else. And the headmistress walks up to the backpack and she seems to have found something there. The main guy says that he always does his family's laundry and that seeing panties isn't new to him, so he wouldn't have any reason to steal. The girls say that that argument actually makes sense. And then they ask who this panty thief is. The headmistress crouches down and picks up a little gold pendant. The girls there protest, asking for clarification, and the headmistress yells at them to shut their mouths. And she said that since Feng has a good reputation, she's going to handle this confidentially, and that everyone there could go back to their rooms. Then she calls the main guy to talk to her alone, and already outside, she, embarrassed, admits that she knows who did it. It was her daughter, who's the student council president. He gets all awkward. She reveals that she found out because of the pendant that was at the scene of the crime. The headmistress then says that her daughter doesn't trust men because of her father's job. Her father worked a very dangerous job, and he had to distance himself from his family to not put them in danger. From then on, she doesn't trust any men. So the headmistress takes the main guy's hand, asking him to help her daughter to trust men again. But she holds it really close to her body there, and Feng gets nervous and pulls his hand away. She quickly winks and says she trusts him, and he immediately retorts, saying she doesn't need to trust him, since that task is really difficult. And from afar, we see that girl with the swords. She's spying on everything, so she goes back with information, and she passes all this information to the student council president. The headmistress's daughter, the girl says there to her friend that her mother is talking to Feng about her, and she starts to get angry, saying that her mother is messing up her plan. While she was complaining there, the girl with the swords asks her to put some clothes on, since she's there without any clothes on. Nanong in the other room, she calls the other evil leader's attention, saying that it's proven that Feng is a decent guy, so they can stop bullying him. So they agree and say they'll stop it. Already the evil one with the red hair, she says that Feng seemed to be panicking when he got there, and he replies that it's because you found out too much. The headmistress said she has big news to give to everyone there, that she's going to switch Feng's room, and Feng is happy with this news, right? Later, the evil one with the blue hair asks Renelle what she thinks of Feng since they're pretty close. So she's there with her cheeks blushing, and she says that Feng is a good person, that he's very special to her, since he's helped her several times. So this evil one with the blue hair, she's thinking if that's true or not. She also doesn't totally trust the main guy. Now he's moved into the Nanong's room. He asks her for help, and she hands him a small bag and says that he can only open it if the case is really urgent. So he starts jumping there with happiness, saying that now he's saved, that he finally has some girl there who he can trust. On the 5th day of the trip, he decides to eat that pill that the butler gave him. After putting the pill in his mouth, his vision starts to blur and he passes out. Nanong hears all that, so she goes to see what happened. When she arrives, the main guy is there all confident, handsome, and says he's going to get breakfast. He shines so much that Nanong even puts on a welding mask there so she won't go blind, since he's radiant. On the way back from the bakery, he meets the 4 evil leaders. When the one with the blue hair sees him, she pounces on him in a really violent way and apologizes for what she did last night. Pressing him against the wall, she said that he'll need to behave himself for the rest of the trip, and he agrees, saying that it's okay. His heart is racing, but he feels a certain relief, and already getting close to the hotel, he meets Lawrence. So he runs to hug him. Lawrence says he has a mission for him. His young lady asked him to participate in a beauty contest tomorrow, and he'll have to win that contest. The main guy retorts, saying that he has no chance of winning since it's a female beauty contest, and the butler said that his young lady asked, so he'll have to comply anyway. Feng refuses, saying that this mission is impossible, and the butler asks if he really wants to disappoint Chuxia Ye. He replies that he has no interest in playing these stupid games with her, and Lawrence says that he is exactly the kind of person he's looking for, someone who has the courage to say no to his young lady. However, Lawrence says that Feng took that pill and that to continue the treatment he needs to take another medicine, otherwise he'll die. And that medicine is part of the prize there at the contest, and another prize at the contest is 300,000 won, and also the right to include a new rule in the school regulations. So the main guy gets motivated there, since that money will help with his family's debt. So he accepts. He gets so motivated that he transforms into a Super Saiyan. But he asks how he's going to participate in a female beauty contest, and the butler says he doesn't need to worry, since that task won't be difficult. So he starts approaching the main guy there, and he starts screaming, asking for help. And on the day of the contest, the students are there calling the guys' attention, right? Since they're all dolled up, they're there even when they're bleeding from so much emotion. At that moment, a beautiful girl with purple and mysterious hair appears, and all the guys there fall in love at that moment. So we already imagine who this mysterious character might be, right? So the contest is about to start, and Chu Xia and the headmistress's daughter ask the butler there if the contest has already started, and he said that it hasn't yet, and that some preparations are missing. The evil one with the pink hair, she's getting changed, and her friend is staring at her, observing her body. Tong Fei with the blue hair, she's in the corner, super focused. She's really determined to win and be in a first place, and all the others are scared, since she seems very determined. They comment on what they'll do with the money. One of them is going to use it to decorate her family's bar, and the others are just participating for fun. Meanwhile, Nanong's playing her video game, Carefree, until she sees Ranel changed. She gets embarrassed there, asking her friend not to stare at her, and Nanong says she has a very beautiful body. So the contest begins, and the host welcomes everyone and starts calling the beach models who are the participants there in the contest. The first to enter is Renel, then Lan, the protagonist's sister, enters, and everyone in the audience falls in love. The third to enter is Nanong. Meanwhile, in the back, a bunch of delinquents are watching the contest. All the other participants have already entered the stage, and only Chuxia Ye was missing. The other students there are surprised, since they had never seen that student at school. Then that bunch of delinquents invade the stage and try to kidnap Lan, the protagonist's sister. So she slaps the leader in the face, and he retaliates by hitting her, and he hits her so hard that she faints. At that moment, that mysterious purple-haired participant is revealed to be Feng. Who would have guessed, right? And he immediately gives a punch there, extremely powerful, to that delinquent. So he takes off the disguise and beats up all the other vandals, and they're there passed out on the ground. The protagonist picks up his sister and takes her to the hospital. He asks the doctor there if his sister will be okay, and the doctor replies that she just fainted, that he can stop worrying. At that moment, Lawrence arrives at the hospital. He tells the main guy that he's responsible for everything that happened, and the main guy gets furious, burning with anger, and calls Lawrence outside the hospital so they can resolve everything. So they start fighting. The fight between the two there is pretty balanced, and the butler said that he was right about the protagonist. He was exactly the ideal type of person, the person he was looking for. He said that all of that was really part of his plan, but he apologizes because he didn't imagine that his sister would be attacked. So he hands over the medicine to the protagonist as part of the payment. Feng grabs the butler's clothes there and gives a really strong punch to his face, saying that he won't forgive him for what he did. At that moment, Chuxiaye appears. The butler reveals that he has always been by his young lady's side like a true brother. He also witnessed the tragedy that changed her life, but that now he's not in a good position to be able to help her. That's why he needs someone to replace him. And she's there outside, listening to everything. Then she appears and tells them to shut their mouths. She scolds her butler, telling him not to take any action behind her back, then asks him to leave with her. In the morning, the protagonist wakes up to a pretty unusual scene. He was sleeping in his sister's lap, and she seemed pretty worried about him. She disguises it, telling him not to worry since she's fine. He's happy to see that she's healthy, so she tries to thank him, but at that moment, when he opens the door, several of her classmates are there outside. They all spent the whole night there waiting for news of their friend. On the way back home, already at night, he meets Ranel, the girl who's his friend with the pink hair. She seemed a bit indecisive when choosing an item there to buy, so he decides to help her. He asks if she's shopping alone, and she said that she wants to buy a souvenir. So he offers to help, and she accepts and asks him if it's a gift. And she replies that yes, it's for someone very special, someone who took good care of her. So he suggests a wooden pig, but he gets embarrassed, saying that it's a bit strange, and she says no, it's actually quite cute. So she decides to buy that one. Back to the hotel, she stops in the middle of the way. She asks if he remembers the first time they met. He said yes, it was when she was robbed, right at the beginning of the story, folks, in the first episode. She, all embarrassed, said that she owes it to him, since he had helped her many times. But she never had the opportunity to return the favor and say thank you. Amidst the fireworks, in a very romantic atmosphere, she thanks him, saying thank you, and extends her hand, handing him the gift. Feng's sister meets with an old friend of hers. Her friend speaks well of her brother and tries to ease the argument that happened, saying that if he did something bad, he must have had some reason to do it. So folks, we're already wondering, did he really kill that girl? What could have happened, right? And she mentions that she's going to move to her friend's school there, this new girl. So we already move on to the part of Feng taking his medicine there, on the balcony of his room in the hotel. And he looks down and sees Tong Fei, that evil one with the blue hair, about to enter the pool with a float. He wonders if she doesn't know how to swim. Since the last time they went to the beach, she also made excuses there not to swim. So he already sees that this could be an opening, and Feng starts to plot an evil plan. At that moment, the float slips from her, and she starts to drown. So Feng, even from up there in the apartment, he jumps down into the pool to save her. So he goes and manages to save the girl and brings her out. He comments that thanks to her, he jumped from a building, and she replies that she owes him one. At that moment, we realize that the other evil one is there in the background, observing everything. Later, she makes the call there to gather all the students for them to leave this trip. The next day, while Feng is walking down the street thinking about how crazy this trip was, he gets curious to know what's inside that little bag that Nanong gave him, since she has the power to predict the future. At that exact moment, a little girl crosses the street distracted with her balloon. And without her realizing it, a car comes at high speed, and the protagonist manages to jump and save her. However, something very bad happens. Feng ends up being run over, and in the hospital he wakes up confused, not knowing where he is. His friend goes to visit him and jokes, saying that he didn't think he would survive the accident. Feng starts to remember the moment he was walking down the street there after the beauty contest. While he was holding the bag, he glimpsed the little girl running after her balloon, and without thinking twice, he jumped to save her from being run over. His friend there tries to pull a prank, saying that he was in a coma for 3 years, but Feng quickly realizes that it's a joke because of the label there on the water he was drinking. So his friend tries to tease him in another way, showing a photo there that he had of Feng dressed as a woman because of the contest, and his friend then takes a punch in the stomach, and Feng ends up breaking his cell phone. His sister's friend arrives to visit, and they ask how he managed to pass this test in the contest, and he says that Chuxia Ye's butler had some contacts. So they were all intrigued there, right? What must have happened? Days later, when Feng arrives at school, all the students there at the school are gossiping about him for having participated in a female contest. And at the press conference a few days ago, Chuxia Ye tried to defend the protagonist. She said that he was part of the security team there at the event, and that he ended up sacrificing his dignity for the school, which ended up making some girls there start to admire him. The girls there started to like him more, and arriving at school he sees the 4 evil leaders there, and he starts to devise a plan to be able to take revenge on them. Tong Fei with the blue hair, she sees the protagonist passing by, and she asks him if he's feeling better, but the protagonist ignores her. And during the welcome meetings there, the headmistress announces that there will be an exchange between the schools. 3 new students will enter the school who is a friend of the protagonist's sister, an old friend of his and another boy. And on the way back from the room, Tong Fei, she wonders there what's wrong with Feng, right? Since she had talked to him, he wasn't responding, and she wonders if it's because of the accident he suffered. So she goes to his desk there after class and calls his name. He realizes that this is the perfect time for him to put his plan into practice. So he stands there wondering who she is, and she ends up getting shocked, asking if he has amnesia. She asks if he lost his memories because of the car accident, and he replies that the doctor said that memory loss was a sequela of this accident. He mentions that he only remembers the classroom and then asks who she is. So she introduces herself and gets a little confused. She doesn't really know how to react, she even seems a little sad. However, Tong Fei leaves and he starts to brag, saying that he's a great actor. His friends realize that he's lying, so he asks Nanong how she found out, if it was because of her power to predict the future. And she said yes. So Feng says that he didn't expect them to find out so quickly, but he said that he believes that they'll support him, that they won't tell the girls that he's lying. While he's passing through the hallway where his sister studies, he sees her talking to other girls, and he's happy to see that she's doing well there at school. When he returns to his room, his friends start to make fun of him, imitating the time he said he had lost his memory. Renil calls him to a corner and asks if he's also forgotten her, so he decides to tell Renil the truth, to make her feel more at ease. His friends say that pretending to have lost his memory won't bring him any advantage, and he retorts, saying that everything will be fine, as long as the evil ones believe him. At that moment, Feng saw a ball coming there in the direction of the school. He sees that it's a somewhat mysterious object, so he grabs Renil and throws himself on the ground. The ball passes very close to Chuxia, who's at the end of the hallway. Unfortunately, Renil ends up getting hurt, so he asks his friend to quickly get a handkerchief for him to tie there on the wound. So they bandage her up, but Randall starts to feel sick. She feels some dizziness, so the protagonist puts her on his back and takes her to the infirmary. Some blocks away, we see Lawrence interrogating the shooter. Some days before we see that this shooter was being hired to shoot Miss Chuxia, the contractor says that she's the daughter of someone very important and orders him to hurt her, shooting with a baseball. Chuxia was already feeling that something strange was about to happen, so she orders Lawrence to investigate the school. Therefore, at the moment that the shooter was planning to shoot Chuxia, the butler there appears and thwarts him. The fighter even tries to fight Lawrence there, but he ends up losing without any chance. Meanwhile, in the infirmary, Renal receives a better dressing, and they wonder how a baseball ended up in that window. So the headmistress appears there together with Nanong and says that the police are already investigating the case. The headmistress also mentions that she talked to her parents, that since they were not in the city, it will take a little time for them to arrive. Renal starts to tremble and says that it's okay. Outside, Feng realizes how she reacted when she heard about her parents, so he thinks that she doesn't want them to show up. Soon after, he changes his mind and says that since he's spending a lot of time with the girls, maybe he's getting too sensitive. His friends appear there outside and say that now that Renil has left, he doesn't need them anymore. His friends mention that the school is full of girls, and ask if he's already thought about getting a girlfriend, but he replies that he hasn't thought about it yet. So his friend gets nervous and asks if Feng has some erectile dysfunction problem, and little does he know that that's exactly it. His friend decides to show his charm there to the protagonist, and points to the headmistress's daughter, saying that he's going to ask her out. So he goes there all charming and asks if he can have the honor of going out with her. She replies that yes, of course. And at that moment, the entire disciplinary committee there at the school appears, and she says that she's going to choose the place. So she suggests the student council room. She scolds the boy there, saying that he's an idiot for flirting right on the first day of class, then orders the girls to teach him a lesson. The girls there arrest him and tie him up and take him to the student committee. The scene then cuts. We see Lawrence together with a maid. She advises that the guest had woken up, so he returns there to get information from the boy. He had been beaten up a lot, and Lawrence wanted more information about the protagonist and hopes that he can cooperate. He uses his instrument sense to try to get more information, and the guy gets scared to death and starts screaming, saying that he's going to tell everything he knows. He ends up taking a really strong punch in the stomach, and the butler said that now that he's got an empty stomach, he will be able to tell everything he knows. So Lawrence asks what relationship he has with Feng, and asks why they're enemies. The scene cuts again, and we go to the student council room. One of the girls appears, saying that she discovered something. The guy they had arrested was Feng's friend, and they knew each other long before coming to school. The president asks if there is any more information, and the protagonist's friend is begging to go to the bathroom. The girl with the sword appears there extremely nervous with the boy, asking how he dared to harass the president, but the blonde tells the boy to let her take care of him herself. The president was afraid that the girl with the sword would get too heavy-handed. As soon as she leaves, the president says that now he's all hers, and the boy already starts to die of fear, asking for forgiveness. He says that he deserves any kind of punishment, but begs her to let him live. She says that she can't let him get away with it, and with an evil face, he asks if he's seeing a ghost behind her. She picks up a giant needle and starts threatening the boy, and he begs, saying that he would do anything for her. So she wants him to spy on his friend Feng, who's the protagonist, and he would never do anything like that. He would never stab his friend in the back, and if she wanted, she could torture him with that needle. She says that's a shame because she was thinking of making him her personal assistant, and upon hearing that, he transforms into a little puppy, telling her that he's all hers and that he'll do anything she says. At Chuxia Ye's mansion, the green-haired guy who had tried to assassinate her ends up getting out of there and manages to escape. However, all of this seems to be part of Lawrence's plan, since he receives a communication of the escape of another employee there from the house. The protagonist's friend is being carried by him and another friend. They get angry when they find out that he was tortured by the president, and a moment later Lawrence already appears there, saying that he needs a favor from Feng. The protagonist refuses the request, and Lawrence asks why he doesn't listen first to what he has to say. So Feng tells his friend there that he can take the other one who's hurt, because he has an important matter to resolve. He talks then with the butler, and says that it has nothing to do with Miss Chuxia Ye, and the butler says that he owes her a lot, and recalls when he saw the girl there changing in the locker room. Feng says that it wasn't his intention, and that the butler there had also hurt his sister, so they were even. Lawrence apologizes and says that this has nothing to do with Miss Chuxia Ye, that's why he should help the girl. In response, the protagonist says that this is one more reason for him not to help in anything, and the butler ends up revealing that he has a video where it shows him spying on the young lady. He takes the flash drive there and breaks it. Then the butler asks if he'll help him now. Without options, Feng ends up accepting and asks if by chance he helps. They will delete the other copy of the video that they probably have, and the butler says that they will delete it if he helps the scene. Then it goes to Miss Chuxia Ye. She's surrounded by 4 guys. They say that she must go with them and say that it's to have some tea. She replies that it's better that this tea isn't bad, and ends up entering the car there together with them. The scene returns again, and we see the protagonist together with the butler, going after the young lady. Lawrence reveals that she was kidnapped and that they needed to rescue her because of that. They try to call her and send messages, but she can't answer, and he asks if by chance the protagonist was confused about what happened there at the amusement park. He said yes and asked why the young lady had cried. The butler reveals that she was missing her father. The girl's father was a very successful businessman and was always very busy. Even so, he made an effort to have time to spend there with his daughter because they were very close to each other. And unfortunately, he died on his way to buy ice cream for her. And after the death of her father, the young lady inherited the family's fortune there. But people tried in any way to deceive her to be able to keep the girl's money. She ended up taking all the responsibility for taking care of the family, and since then she has become a cold-hearted worker. She always kept her distance from others and was very lonely. She didn't trust the other directors of the company, and she always went to all the important meetings in person. And 6 months ago, a girl ended up entering her life and caused some changes, but that girl disappeared about a month ago. The protagonist didn't know any of this and asks, "What does this have to do with the kidnapping?" The butler then reveals that she has a GPS and a listening device, so they could hear what was happening. The GPS signal led to this building where they had just arrived, and it was the headquarters of Chuxia Ye's family's company. He decides to enter the building together with the protagonist to try to rescue his young lady, and Feng asks again, will he destroy all copies of the video? Lawrence confirms that yes as soon as they arrive. They notice several henchmen trying to block the entrance, but they defeat them there with extreme ease. Upon entering the building, they notice that it's completely empty, so they decide to go up the stairs because the elevator there could contain some traps. There were several floors, so they needed to run as fast as possible. The young lady was being taken to the general manager. When she finally arrives, he is surprised, saying that he had been waiting for her for quite some time. This guy's name is Mr. Liu, and she asks, what's the reason for him bringing her there? In fact, he wanted to take the company for himself, and is making some speeches there trying to deceive the girl. The young lady is very intelligent and says, he has no authority there. He then throws some papers for her to sign. It was a voting rights contract. He wanted to have more power there within the company and become the new owner. This statement says that she was resigning from the position of president and wanted to recommend him in her place. Chuxia Ye said, even if he were the president, he wouldn't be able to control the company since he has no qualifications. The protagonist is listening to this whole conversation and realizes that the young lady is much stronger than he thought and wasn't giving in so easily to this Mr. Liu. He keeps insisting there and says that she'll be forced to sign these papers and hands them to her. Chuxia Ye gets angry and slaps the table asking, is he an idiot by any chance? She asks, does he think he's going to be able to convince all the members of their board of directors? He said, that yes, and she's going to see how he's going to do it. The protagonist even realizes that the situation is not good at all and starts running even faster. The butler says that this kidnapping only seems like a part of the conspiracy, and the ladder by which they were climbing is damaged, and the butler suggests using another ladder there on the side. They change the path and end up having to enter through a door, and upon entering this new room, the chandelier there ends up falling, almost hitting the two. That shameless green-haired guy appears there saying that they fell into his trap. So Lawrence takes a note and hands it to the protagonist and tells him to move on, and as soon as he defeats this guy, he'll catch up with him. The protagonist takes the note and continues walking to reach Miss Chuxia. Then the green-haired guy said that he's not going to take it easy on the butler, and Lawrence makes the guy nervous, saying that he doesn't know him very well, but that judging by the last meeting, he's sure he'll defeat him easily. The green guy already gets angry and launches some shurikens at the butler, and he managed to dodge all of them with ease. However, his technique consists of trapping invisible threads, and he uses this technique to try to strangle the butler. However, Lawrence is very powerful and ends up cutting these threads with his blade. He said that he didn't want to kill him, but that he'll do it. He prepares to stab the guy with the blades, but the green-haired guy tries to escape in any way. However, that was part of a theater. He said that now that the protagonist is far enough away, he can stop beating on this guy. So he extends his hand and apologizes. Not even the green-haired guy understands what's happening. Is the butler a traitor? The protagonist continues to the 13th floor. However, when he arrives in the hallway, he notices a blue-haired guy on top of a chandelier. The guy jumps down there and he seems to be very strong. He said that his boss sent him there to give him some support, but he didn't like Mr. Liu. The protagonist realizes that he really hates this Mr. Liu. He says to stop with the small talk and start fighting. He unleashes an extremely fast punch, but Feng managed to dodge with elegance. He tries to land another blow. Feng does a backflip but ends up catching a graze on his cheek. The blue-haired guy is impressed and says that his opponent is strong for having managed to dodge. The protagonist reveals that he didn't expect anyone to have such a potent an attack like his, that only his master could do something like that. So the blue-haired guy says he's going to try again. This time the blow ends up hitting, launching Feng far away. The conceited guy there said that it's not over yet and there are many more blows to come, so Feng ends up throwing the chairs that were near him at this blue-haired boy. But he manages to dodge with great ease. He demonstrates being very strong, tearing off a pilaster, hitting Feng. He admits that he overdid it and that he probably killed the boy crushed there. But to his surprise, Feng was still alive. He wonders how this is possible, and if by chance he is a human being. Feng already says that he had a good master. Without giving his enemy time to get up, he attacks him again, delivering another blow to his chest. Then he falls to the ground, and the phone that contained the listening device of Miss Chuxia also ends up falling. The blue-haired guy says that it's better for them to hurry. He guarantees that he wouldn't kill the boy, because he needed to ask him some questions first. Feng, however, couldn't move. To his surprise, Mr. Liu's laughter ended up making the blue-haired boy feel bad. He starts to feel nauseous. He ends up vomiting right there. The laughter of that guy made his stomach churn, and the protagonist doesn't understand why that happens. He realizes that this is a perfect opportunity. So while the boy continues to vomit, Feng goes there and puts the earphones in his ear and leaves, leaving him feeling sick. His body is still quite sore. He realizes that he hadn't read the note that the butler had given him. After the death of Miss Chuxia's father, she isolated herself in the room for quite some time. For years, she couldn't overcome what happened, and everyone was very worried about her, until that girl finally appeared with her company. The young lady rediscovered her smile and her enthusiasm. The protagonist didn't imagine that she had gone through so many things, and while he reads the note, he comments that the butler is a bit too dramatic. The note still said that he had checked on this girl who had disappeared for the sake of the young lady. Lawrence discovers a strange thing. However, at that moment the girl simply disappears. That boy who was being held prisoner had revealed a very mysterious thing. While the protagonist reads, he gets quite shocked with what's written on that paper. The scene changes. We see the young lady negotiating with Mr. Liu. He says that when she signs the contract, she will have done something beneficial to him. The young lady says that this contract doesn't symbolize anything. The scene returns then to the protagonist, and the note said that Yao hadn't died. This girl is the one who is friends with his sister, and she kept accusing the protagonist of having killed her. People had seen her fall from the cliff, but there was no more information about her. The protagonist also wanted to know what was going on, and probably, folks, there is some connection between this girl, the protagonist, and his sister. So he decides to go there and ask Chuxia. She was still negotiating with this Mr. Liu, and she said that she doesn't trust the shareholders, so she had removed all of their stamps. Without the stamps, they couldn't do anything, and it would be impossible to take away her power there from the company. He keeps asking her to reveal where she kept the stamps. She said that she would never hand them over to him. He grabs her shoulder and starts threatening her. Her cell phone rings and it's the green-haired boy saying that the butler had brought all the stamps to him. This ends up making the guy quite happy, and he starts giving that evil laugh of his. The young lady doesn't understand anything, so he explains that it was over and puts his cell phone there on a video call. She sees Lawrence in the background and realizes that she had been betrayed by him. He was handing over the stamps while asking for forgiveness. She asks if he had gone crazy by any chance. The butler reveals that he had promised the girl's father that he would protect her, but he didn't promise that he would double protect the company. She keeps calling him a traitor. The butler then reveals that he's doing this to protect her, since the girl there had forgotten what was most important. He was doing everything to help her. Then Mr. Liu orders the green-haired boy to bring these stamps to him. Now he only needs the girl's signature and ends up forcing her hand on top of the sheet. At that moment, someone is knocking on the door. He starts laughing, saying that he's the one who's going to manage the company. Someone continues to knock on the door. When he goes to answer, the protagonist gives a big kick, launching him far away. He asks for permission, saying that the delivery had arrived. That shameless guy says that he hadn't ordered anything. Feng jokes, saying that he ate everything on the way. He had defeated everyone down there. The protagonist says that he had no difficulties in passing through them. He orders other henchmen to try to kill the protagonist, and meanwhile, he flees through the emergency exit. Seconds later, Feng had already defeated all of them and was ready to pursue Mr. Liu. However, this guy activates a detonator and explodes one of the floors below there of the building. The protagonist then goes to the young lady and asks how she is realizing that the emergency alarm is ringing. He tells her that an explosion is causing a fire in the building, and that's why they need to get out of there as quickly as possible. However, the girl is in disbelief and she doesn't believe what's happening. He tries to take her outside, but the girl says that there is something that she needs to get. Feng insists on rescuing her, and the girl there ends up slapping his hand and then slapping his face. She says that he doesn't understand and starts to cry. Probably there was something important that she wanted to recover, so she runs off to try to rescue this item. Feng says that she is very stubborn and also very problematic. She runs through the corridors there on fire, and her body seems to be quite injured. She barely manages to stand up, and finally she ends up arriving in a room where there is something that she wants to get. She looks among the rubble and ends up finding the box, which is fortunately intact. She takes the key, then opens the safe, and hugs the little box that was inside. That was very important to her, and after recovering it, she decides that she has to find a way to get out of there. Chusia Ye realizes that there's no free exit, so she starts to get desperate. They were on the 10th floor, and it was too high for them to jump, and the exit was blocked, so she starts to cry in desperation, because there was no way to get out of there. Feng continues looking for the girl, saying that she is very stubborn. He hears the sound of crying, so he clenches his fist, and ends up breaking the door to enter inside there. She gets quite emotional because he hadn't given up on her and had returned to try to save her. Chusia Ye seems not to believe that he was risking his own life to save her. He asks where she learned to control this hot-tempered temper of hers, and ends up picking up the girl in his arms. He says that he's going to get them out of there. He then asks her to hold her breath so that she doesn't breathe the smoke, and with the girl in his arms he runs desperately in search of a place to be able to escape. All the exits were blocked, and the staircase was full of rubble and flames. While she tries to talk to him, he tells her to hold her breath, otherwise she would die suffocated. After much difficulty, he ends up finding the emergency exit door, and upon exiting the staircase, he realizes that he is still in a very high part of the building. The young lady had fainted, but now they were relatively safe. When he thinks that he was finally safe, the building there starts to explode, and they needed to get out of there, otherwise they would die. The explosions get more and more intense. He decides to jump down there into a swimming pool. When he does that, he realizes that the girl is completely unconscious. Due to the explosion, he also loses strength and can't swim to her. Water starts to enter his lungs, and little by little he loses consciousness. However, Feng notices that someone has appeared there to help them. Later, he woke up in the hospital. Who had saved the two was the butler, Lawrence. So the protagonist asks if it was really him who had saved the two. The butler says that he was in a helicopter, looking for an alternative to save his young lady. It was when he located the two jumping into the pool, and immediately he went there to save them. The protagonist takes a fruit from the basket that the butler had brought and asks what he did with Mr. Liu, because he knew that they wouldn't let him go unscathed. The butler advises that now the decision rests with his young lady. The protagonist asks how Lawrence is going to deal with the girl since she sees him as a traitor. The butler gets apprehensive, and he replies that she is still quite angry with him and he doesn't know what she's going to decide. The protagonist asks what he knows about Yao. He reveals that he knows very little, even less than the protagonist. He says that this girl got quite close to his young lady, but that he didn't talk much to her. So, one day he decided to research about this girl's past, but he ended up not finding many things. It's strange since she was a common girl. He doesn't understand why Lawrence hadn't been able to find information about her. So the butler reveals that the boy there that acquiring him to know what happened to her after that she had approached. The butler seemed a little suspicious, but he also wanted to discover the reason for it, since a very big mystery surrounded the His watch rings, and he flees through the window. And at that moment, the young lady appears there to visit him. She's very shy, folks, and asks if he had already woken up. The protagonist replies that yes, so she sits on a sofa and realizes that the upholstery there is warm, deducing that he had just received a visit. Feng disguises it, saying that it was his family who came to visit, and had even brought fruits, so he understands why the butler fled through the window. He didn't want to meet with the young lady. Chusia seems to suspect the protagonist there, and Feng asks if she came there strictly to visit him. In a very shy way, she says that yes, she came there to visit him since he had saved her. At that moment, the girls from the school there end up knocking on the door, breaking all the atmosphere there. Among the three, the girls seem surprised, with the mysterious Chusia coming to visit Feng there. She asks who these girls are. They respond in a somewhat nervous way that they are his classmates. Before leaving, Chusia says that they need to talk about Yao, and then she leaves. The girls get curious, asking if by chance they are dating. Feng gets defensive. He already uses his acting mode there because he was pretending to them that he had lost his memory, and starts acting silly. The representative had brought a basket of fruits for him. However, he had already received one from the butler. He ends up lying, saying that this basket was brought by Chuxia. The girls already start to tease, imagining that they are very intimate, that in fact they are dating. Yes, they insist for him to tell the truth and admit that they are dating. However, Feng says that they are not close, and doesn't even know the reason for her coming there. But the three there don't believe what he's saying and are making up theories there about the dating. The representative then decides to leave and let the protagonist rest. He thanks her for the visit. Soon after, he receives a message from Chuxia inviting him to a date at Music Bucks at 3 p.m. Feng then appears at the agreed location, which was that coffee shop called Music Bucks. He keeps saying that the place is quite chic and is worthy of being visited by Chuxia. Then when he receives the menu and sees the price of the items, he gets quite startled. The girl finally appears. She's using an outfit that he doesn't usually see her use. Our protagonist already gets quite emotional and his cheeks even get flushed. She asks why he's making that face. In a quite nervous way, he says that he's a perfect gentleman. She says that as he's a gentleman, he should choose the order and then pay. Feng already realizes that he messed up on that one. However, as our hero likes to provoke Chuxia, he ends up ordering 2 cups of coffee and 2 cakes with arrows of love. And this was an order that couples used to order in this place. That's why Chuxia already gets quite nervous and with flushed cheeks. She even ends up thinking that he's the last romantic on Earth. She decides to cut off this subject right away and ask how much he knows about Yahello. The only thing that he knew is that 6 months ago she met this girl and they became quite friends. Chuxia doesn't want to talk much about the girl since mysteriously she disappeared. Not even her butler Lawrence knew what had happened to this mysterious girl. Feng says that she doesn't need to talk about it anymore since it's a subject that makes her uncomfortable. Chuxia said that her room at school was near Yao's dormitory, which is why they had met. Feng asks why the heck she has a room just for her. Chuxia says that she doesn't like to study together with other students. That's why she bought part of the school's shares just to have a private room for her. At that moment, our protagonist realizes that rich people literally manage to do whatever they want. However, Chuxia also reveals that Yao also had a private room for her. This increases even more the mysteries behind this girl. That evil one with the red hair. She's spying on our hero and ends up seeing him taking an afternoon coffee together with Chuxia. So, the girl already decides to grab her cell phone. Takes some photos to have some secret weapon to use against Feng. Chuxia says that she's going to have to use some tactics to be able to acquire information about Yao from that Lu, because she imagines that he must know something about her. Feng gets quite scared upon realizing that the girl is capable of doing this type of thing. She makes a quite scary face that ends up leaving our hero a little scared. He realizes that that guy who tried to stage a coup at Chuxia's company could very well be dead. He suggests that after finishing the interrogation, it would be better to hand him over to the police. However, Chuxia says that when she finishes the interrogation, she'll call him and tell him the news. The evil one with the red hair already gets all in love, thinking that our hero is dating Chuxia. She decides to take some photos and even makes some notes. She writes on a notepad that she was a little disappointed, because as soon as they finished drinking coffee, they left separately, and this indicated that nothing happened in a hotel. Soon after, this girl goes to a library and ends up finding Teng Fei reading some books. On the cover of the book, it said that it was an efficient treatment for amnesia. We are already imagining that she is a little interested in Feng, since he supposedly has amnesia, and she is all interested in wanting to help him. When the red-haired girl sees the cover of the book, she already gets startled and starts to think that her friend is really in love. She goes there to try to irritate Tongfeo. However, the girl ends up dodging. She tells her friend to be quiet when she's in a bookstore. She's questioned because she's reading this type of book. She says that regardless of Feng being a man, she's the class representative. That's why she should help all of her friends. The red-haired girl hadn't fallen for this amnesia story, but even so, Tongfei would help. She says that she believes in Feng. The red-haired girl says that, in fact, Tongfei is interested. In Feng, that's why she's reading this type of book, to have something in common to be able to talk with him. However, our girl with the blue hair says that it's nothing like that. She's simply demonstrating attention for being the class representative. Her friend ends up poking her, to telling her to be careful and act faster than the other girls, because she would end up being passed to the back, the Tongfeo of the soul of fool, and pretends not to know what is happening. In fact, there were already quite a lot of girls there interested in our hero, and if she ended up goofing off, she wasn't going to manage to conquer the heart of our kid. Upon arriving at the dormitory of the female school Chongyan, Feng ends up finding the butler Lawrence. They were fighting because the butler had betrayed Chuxie, and they end up throwing punches. Lawrence says that he didn't come there to fight, he just wants to talk with our hero. She had even prepared food for him. Feng says that he won't eat the food of a traitor, and minutes later he is sitting at the table eating Lawrence's food. He then asks what the heck Lawrence came to do at school. Without making much suspense, Lawrence said that he has an ultra-special mission for our hero. He wanted to leave his young lady Ye in Feng's hands. The protagonist doesn't quite fully understand what he means by that. The butler says that it's exactly what he heard. After the incident of the building where Lu tried to take Chuxiaye's organization, he couldn't work for the girl anymore, since she wouldn't trust him anymore. Therefore, the person who would be able to replace him was our hero. Only he was reliable enough and also strong to protect the girl. Lawrence said that he will use this time to investigate some matters. When asked what matters those are, the butler reveals that it's about her master, Chuxiaye's father. There's a very big mystery being drawn about who this Yao is, and what really happened to Chuxiaye's father. As many dangerous people were trying to take the girl's father's company, she needed a very skilled and confident security guard. That's why Lawrence was going to recommend him as her replacement. Feng says that he doesn't have a good feeling about this. Besides, it would make it easier for him to get information about Yao, since her disappearance was linked to Chuxiaye's company. The butler keeps insisting quite a bit. Our hero already realizes that there's no way for him to refuse. He ends up confirming that he will accept this proposal. However, deep down he imagines that Chuxiaye won't accept him as security, because he imagines that the girl detests him. When they say goodbye, Feng thanks Lawrence for having sent a basket of fruits while he was hospitalized. However, it wasn't the butler who had delivered those baskets. Our hero already gets all confused. In a dormitory near there, his sister sneezes. We see that, in fact, it was she who took those baskets. Deep down, she still liked and cared about her brother. During the night, our hero couldn't sleep. So he goes to the school's gym to be able to train. He hears someone passing in the hallway. When he opens the door to see who it was Tongfei. Tongfei was so in love that she was following our hero. She even went there to deliver some gift to him. She said that she had prepared a dinner. Since he had amnesia, she was doing this so that he could recover as quickly as possible. The girl only kept making excuses because she didn't want to admit that she was worried and that she cared about him. That was a beef stew with potatoes. The appearance seemed to be very good. However, when our hero puts it in his mouth, he already starts to feel sick. His vision gets blurred. Looks like she wasn't a good cook. He ends up fainting. He dreams that he is in heaven. The place is very beautiful and illuminated. That was a practically perfect dream. He sees Chuxiaye together with Tongfei. They hug him and call him to go to paradise, which is far away in the sky. Along the way, he observes several waifus from the school. This was a dream that you would like to be a reality in your lives. Each of them seems even more in love with our hero. They all keep inviting him to do something that I can't talk about here. But when he observes his sister in the background also inviting him, he already gets a little scared. However, she only wanted to make peace with him. Upon seeing Lan's hand stretched out for him to make peace, he also stretches out his hand to touch her hand. At that moment, Feng ends up waking up with his hands in a place where they shouldn't be. Tongfei, I know she was quite brave and aggressive, is quite calm. Even though the situation is considered critical, he asks where he is. Tongfei says that it's better for him to take his hand off there first. She's quite calm, and even so, he takes a huge scare. As he had amnesia, she said that she's calmer with him and that he doesn't need to worry. However, we see that her cheek is all flushed, and she was liking that. Even Feng gets a little scared because her reaction was quite normal, and I accepted it. He asks, who is Lan Lan that he just shouted? It's logical that she knew that Xiaolan was Feng's sister. However, she was asking that to see if he had recovered his memory. At that moment, Feng enters acting mode level 10. He starts to pretend that he was calling the name that he remembers well in the depths of his mind. Poor Feifera is happy to think that Feng's recovering his memory. He starts to act even more, pretending that he doesn't know who this name is about. The girl gets worried, telling him not to make a lot of effort, because that way he was going to get a headache. The shameless one realizes that his acting was successful. He thanks the representative, saying that the food was very good, being that it was a lie, so much so that it gave him poisoning. For having praised the girl's food, she decides to put a little more in his mouth. He ends up shouting, saying that he doesn't need it. For having lied, he ended up having to eat all the food that she had brought. He ends up fainting from food poisoning for being part of the athletics club. She's quite strong and ends up picking him up in her arms to take him to the infirmary. However, in the middle of the way, she decides to leave him in his dormitory, then covers him and leaves. The next morning, he's feeling sick and is even staggering. He arrives in the classroom a little late, and the teacher tells everyone to be quiet. Today they will be welcoming a new classmate. Her name was Moria, and she was a student from Great Britain. The blonde already has a face that you should be suspicious of. She keeps asking the students of Chang'an College to treat her very well, and she'll do everything to get along with all the students. The girls keep saying that she's pretty, that her hair is charming, and that her skin is silky, but Feng already knows that this girl has something strange about her. The teacher orders Moria to sit at the desk near Feng. She goes over there. The girl throws her backpack on the table. Our hero welcomes her, saying that now they are neighbors. She repeats the phrase that she just said, asking them to take good care of her. Both had recently transferred. That's why they already imagine that they will get along well. Our hero's friend with kitten ears gets a little jealous of Feng. She's getting along well with the new student, since everyone there wanted to make friends with her. Then a shameless friend of our hero runs off to flirt with this guy. He's quite shameless, but Moria refuses him right away, saying that the boy seems to be a little frivolous. This ends up destroying him, since the boy was quite confident for thinking himself charming. She had already taught him a lesson, telling him not to flirt at school. She seems to be behind him, saying that he hadn't learned since the last lesson, and that they will need to punish him again. At that moment, the disciplinary committee goes to the room for having heard some student flirting. The poor guy already starts to die of fear, saying that he didn't do anything and that he's innocent. But that girl with the sword snaps her finger. She makes all her helpers tie him up and take him to the room to be able to punish him again. Tongfei introduces herself to Amore, saying that she is the class representative. Soon after, she tells Feng that she will stop by his dormitory to take him lunch. The red-haired girl hears this and wants to ruin her friend's plans. She says that she will also stop by Feng's dormitory to take a little surprise to him. The other students who are around already imagine that this is going to be a party, so they start thinking about how they will invite themselves. The evil one with the pink hair asks if there is any problem with her also going along. Nanong, along with the girl with kitten ears, also invite themselves. Ranel gets embarrassed. Very quietly, she whispers asking, "Prophet? Can she also attend the party?" Moria, who had just arrived at the school, also invites herself. Our hero realizes that he is going to cause chaos inside his dormitory. In a company in the center of the city, they're planning something. That blue-haired guy who is working for Director Liu advises the general director that they failed inside the AE Mansion building and didn't manage to steal the company. He still says that Master Liu was arrested and is in captivity at his enemy's house. The general director orders him to go there to be able to rescue him. He said that he will not disappoint his boss and that he will accomplish this mission, no matter what happens for the mission to succeed. She says that she has arranged a new member to help him in this mission, which is quite difficult. We see this mysterious boss passing the plan to him with certain details. Back at Chang'an College, we see that Feng's dormitory is really full of students. They are drinking a Chinese Coca-Cola of 2.5 Ella and are quite animated as if there was something there in the drink. Tongfei offers Wei Wei some soda. She said that she won't drink since it's bad for her health. Feng was getting along well with that new girl. She asks if around there they don't do topless, but the young woman doesn't even know what that is. When she asks what that word means, she explains it to him. The shameless one already gets all embarrassed. Tongfei realizes that our hero is getting along well with the girl. She goes there to separate the two. Deep down, Ranel gets a little jealous. Tongfei says that she shouldn't be saying this kind of thing, and that it's against the rules to get so close to boys like that. Finally, the evil redhead says that she's hungry, and asks her friend to go to the restaurant to get some food. When Tongfei leaves, the evil one with the red hair goes to our hero with that photo to be able to blackmail him. He gets startled upon seeing that she had taken that picture of him. The evil one with the red hair? She says that she doesn't want to blackmail him at all. She just wants to know what was happening. Our hero gives all kinds of excuses possible, but the girl doesn't accept it. She demands that he tell the truth. The poor guy already realizes that This isn't going to come cheap, and he will have to, in her acting mode, level hard to be able to trick this girl. She insists that she wants to know how he met her. The protagonist asks what she's going to do with him if he doesn't tell. The redhead already starts asking how it was that he confessed to her. Up to what point did they go? How did they meet, and if they even introduced each other to their families? Feng insists, saying that he has nothing with Chuseaye, and that he wouldn't dare to have intimacy with her. The evil redhead says that among all the students who have already passed through the school, none had the courage to even talk with her. That's why she was very curious to know what Feng had done to leave Chuseaye so calm as she was. She was quite intelligent. That's why Feng had to invent the best excuse of all. He says that the butler invited him to be able to take care of Chuseaye's kitten. When he went there, he rehearsed the service very well. Of course, he wasn't going to tell the whole truth. That's why he invents a very lame excuse. Even so, the redhead seems to believe it and writes everything down in a notebook. Feng gets nervous, asking why she's writing on that paper. She says that she likes to write in her materials, subjects like these. He asks if this is for some schoolwork. She says that she's not going to answer. He gets quite curious. She said that she will demand that he tell more stories and starts to leave. She was very hungry, so she runs off, and Feng gets worried, wondering if she'll tell other girls or not. All that was left for him was to trust her. Soon after that, he goes there to be able to have dinner, and the food seemed to be very tasty. The next day, all the students who participated in that party were feeling sick. Mariah was the only one who wasn't feeling like this, and upon getting up, she realizes that our hero was calling out his sister's name. That was probably because of the effect of the food. He stands there wondering what kind of strange dreams it is that he has been having in recent days. Again, he had dreamed that his sister looked like an angel and was inviting him to make peace. He takes the ugly and ugly one to the infirmary. Soon after, he goes to Moria to be able to talk. She said that she also started to feel bad, and that it was probably a strong food poisoning, and the two were looking quite exhausted. She was going to the teacher's room to resolve some important matters. Our hero says that he is going to the classroom, because he already feels better and needs to study in the hallway. He mentions that it would be a good idea to take one of those pills that he won from the butler Lawrence, since it would make him recover a little more of his strength. However, to his surprise, he ends up meeting with the headmistress. We know that this headmistress is a little strange, and likes, let's say, a little too much of our hero. She tells Feng that everyone already knows about the girl who disappeared there at school, and that this is lowering the popularity of the college. She had just come out of a meeting with the board of directors. They decided that they should improve the security system in any way. And if another incident like this happened, they would close the school. This seemed to be a quite drastic attitude. Feng already realizes that it is going to fall to him, so he tries to flee quickly. However, the headmistress pulls him by the collar and says that she has a quite important mission, and only he can resolve it. He says that he is not accustomed to that and is leaving on tiptoe. However, the headmistress says that if he doesn't resolve this issue, the school will close and he would lose his scholarship. Just to remind you, he's in the school to earn the scholarship money and thus pay off his parents' debt. That's why it was very important that the school continue open and he doesn't lose this money. So he wants in any way to understand what he needs to do. The headmistress says that Feng understood very well. No school, no scholarships. He already starts to burn with nervousness and says that he will accomplish any mission that she gives him. This was the perfect plan that the headmistress had armed. All of this to motivate our hero. For now, he only needed to protect the school and not let anything bad happen to the girls. This mission even seemed a little simple, however. As the headmistress said that it was an important mission, he already gets anxious, thinking that something bad may be about to happen. Moria, that new girl who came from Great Britain, goes to the boardroom to talk to the chief advisor. He asks if she is the student that the helper Ling had sent. She replies that it was her herself, and that please take care of me. She always said that. At that moment, we already see that this girl is plotting something and she seems quite suspicious. The advisor says that he doesn't know what Ling was thinking by sending a student to talk there with him. Even so, he receives her well and orders the girl to sit down so that they can negotiate. The girl asks if he doesn't trust her. If by chance he wants, she can do something to prove her ability. The advisor says that there is no need for that, and asks the girl why the last plan had failed. She explains that previously Link, that guy who tried to take Chuxiaye's companies, had sent Jinfu, who's that blue-haired boy. However, they failed and didn't manage to take the company for them. The main mission wasn't even to take the companies of Chuxiaye's father, but rather the shares of the female school Chongnan. And to make it worse, they didn't imagine that Link would be captured and taken the hostage by the girl. The advisor asked Moria if this information was leaked. She says that she didn't tell anything to anyone, and few people know about their true plan. A little nervous for having failed, the advisor asks if she has any suggestions. Apparently she had some brilliant plan in mind. She said that she will tell him in detail. She was preparing for a security accident. The scene cuts without us knowing what is this true plan that she is devising after lunch. The classroom seemed exhausting, since many of the students were feeling sick because of the food that they had eaten the night before. Nanong is feeling sick and tries to use her power of divination there to know when they will get better. Tongfei only worries about Feng. He says there to the class representative that he feels a little better compared to earlier. Weiwei gets jealous and says that Fei Fei is giving a lot of attention to the protagonists. All of them there get bothered with their friend's attention to Feng. They plan to end the girls' good moments. When they set off to interrupt, Chu Xiaye opens the doors, calling the attention of all the students. She says out loud to Feng to get ready and prepare for the change. Everyone there gets curious to know what that phrase of hers was about. The girl was quite popular. Even the students in the hallways get curious to know this gossip. Feng starts to sweat cold. She tells him that he will move to her house. This leaves all the students speechless. They would never imagine that they would hear this from the mouth of that girl. As she was quite rich and powerful, everyone was afraid of her. But the girl was there, clinging to Feng's arms. She mentions that her maid had already arranged everything. He would stay in Lawrence's place, since now she couldn't trust him anymore. Our hero would be her personal security guard. The poor guy imagined that she wouldn't accept this recommendation. He keeps asking even if she wanted a security guard, it wouldn't make sense for him to move to her house. She doesn't understand what he's talking about. Since the main part of the security will be at her mansion, then it would make total sense for them to live together. Because she keeps insisting quite a bit, he ends up giving in. He says that he will live there for some time. Deep down, he was planning some way to get rid of Chuxiaye. All the girls at the school go outside to be able to observe that scene. No one believed that Chuxiaye, the richest and most popular girl at the school, was leaving arm in arm with Feng. Some even comment about their history, because they knew that the two had argued. Some gossips keep saying that that is a declared dating. It starts to spread rumors about the two. Feng's sister, Alan, observes her brother leaving with that girl. She sent him a message asking what he's up to. He even sees the notification on his cell phone, but he can't touch it near Chuxiaye. If she discovered this message, she would find it bad. Before he could complain, saying that he couldn't leave because Ria's belongings were still in the dormitory. Chuxiaye replies that her employees have already taken care of everything, and they will take all the boys' belongings to the mansion. The Aiye mansion was quite enormous. Only the entrance courtyard was extremely long. Feng gets all emotional, saying that the mansion is truly beautiful. At the entrance door, the three maids receive the couple. Better, Chuxiaye and Feng. We already see a big painting of Da Vinci there, the Mona Lisa. I don't know if this is the original painting, but we see that she is very rich. She has several famous works of art in her hallways. Upon seeing all the luxury items, he feels a little bad, because he thinks that he is not strong enough to work for the girl. As soon as Chuxiaye leaves, he asks the maid why him being her personal security guard if there wasn't any other more qualified person. The green-haired employee said that Lawrence was quite trustworthy. However, because he had betrayed her in the building accident, it was very difficult for her to find another person up to the task to be able to replace him. As Feng showed himself to be a true friend and someone in whom she could trust, he would yes be the ideal person. But it doesn't get it into his head why he is so trustworthy to her. He remembers that at that critical moment, where she was on the verge of death, he risked his own life to save the girl. That was something that no person had done before. Our hero, even not getting along well with her, risked his own life. He even said that it was a misunderstanding and what he did wasn't a big deal. He even asked the maid if she could advise the young lady that he wasn't the right person. However, at that moment, the maid says that they disagree with him, and in fact, who should be advised was Feng himself. When she was in danger and everyone turned against her, only our hero risked himself and went there to protect her. Besides, he didn't want to control her life, saying what she should do, as Lawrence always did. That's why he should trust more in himself, demonstrate value in this trust that she was giving him. Feng gets thoughtful for an instant. When he enters his room and sees that it's gigantic, he already starts to get amazed. Even his belongings that were in the dormitory were all there, organized in the way that he had left them. The maid even comments that they made a point of putting the books in the correct order. Some yellow magazines under his bed were also placed in the correct category. Feng already gets nervous, asking if by chance they leafed through those magazines. The group there of changes was perfect. They guaranteed first-class accommodation. If he needed anything, he could call them. Our hero gets worried and only thinks about the magazines. What could be inside, huh, folks? To finish, the maid even said, that door is very important. When he asks what that blessed door is for, she says that it leads to Chuxiaye's room. Yes, folks, our hero's room was interconnected with the girl's room. Can you already think of the possible scenes that might occur? He gets nervous, asking why that is. The maid says that it's so that he can defend her in possible night attacks. It is only locked from the inside. That's why he couldn't invade her room. Only she could enter through that door and hide in his room if necessary. He starts to shout, saying that this is quite evasive. The maid disguises it, pretending that she is cleaning some dust there in the closet. Before leaving, she reminds him that the doors can only be opened from the side of Chuxia-ye's room. That's why there's no use in him trying to enter inside there. He already gets angry, saying that he won't enter there. Worried about being attacked by her during the night, he places several items in the middle of the door so that she can't open it. The purpose of this mission was for him to defend her. However, he was afraid of being attacked by Chuxia-ye. He still had in his head that she detested him. Later, he meets with a young lady to be able to have afternoon coffee. She reveals that Mr. Liu had gained help from a strange organization to be able to take the shares of the school. In fact, the real interest of this organization wasn't so much Chuxia-ye's companies, but rather the shares that she had bought from Chang'an College. She gets nervous because of this, saying that she's going through all this stress for something irrelevant. She had discovered this information because Liu was locked in her basement. Feng already gets nervous upon knowing this, since he doesn't approve of this kind of thing. During the day of the incident, we see what had happened. Mr. Liu was fleeing in a helicopter. However, one of Chuxia-ye's maids had managed to invade the security system and hack that helicopter, making it fall and thus capturing the subject. They had caught both Mr. Liu and that green-haired guy. The protagonist realizes that the Ai family was also sinister. That's why he should be careful and be loyal to his young lady. However, something that had left her quite upset is that she had distrusted her directors, but none of them had betrayed her. She thought that they had informed about the seals and signed the documents, but none of this had happened. She imagined that Liu had spent a lot of time looking for the weakness of his directors, and thus make them sign willingly or unwillingly. In fact, Liu only knew about these seals at the time that she mentioned it in the conversation with him. And her directors hadn't told anything about this to Hollywood during all this time. She imagined that if she had acted with a certain rigidity, no one would be able to betray her. In the end, she was rigid, and even so, there was a traitor. She suspected people who were loyal to her. Feng knew what she should do. He says this to her. She was afraid of going to the headquarters of her company and talking to their directors. She felt fear and also felt embarrassed, because she knew that she had done something wrong and suspected them, even though the poor guys hadn't given her reasons for that. Feng then holds the girl's hand. He starts to drag her. She asks where he is taking her. He says that she already knows what she must do. He asks the young lady to change and gather the directors in the meeting room. The maids then help Miss Ai to be able to change. They go to the building of the temporary headquarters since the old building had caught fire. He takes the girl to the door of the meeting room and pushes her inside. When she arrives there, she starts to tremble with nervousness. She would like to apologize, however she was very anxious and wouldn't be able to do that alone. She really needed a little push like Feng did. He stays outside feeling proud of the girl. He goes to a hallway to sit on a sofa and drink a soda. When she returns, he observes the girl with flushed cheeks. She didn't want someone who kept bossing her around as Lawrence did. However, Feng was different. He knew exactly how to give the right little push for her to do good things. She asked why he forced her to do that. He said that in reality from the beginning she wanted to apologize to them, but she was afraid of meeting with the directors for creating false expectations in her heart. In an embarrassed way, she said that even without him, she would come and apologize. Our hero said that if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have come here and would be there in her room sulking if she wasn't honest. But from now on, she would make several mistakes. That's why she should change her frankness from now on. He asks her to thank him. At that moment, Feng realizes that he went too far, and had provoked Miss Aya quite a bit. In a very frightening way, she says that she won't fail to show her sincere gratitude to him. The poor guy already feels regret for having said those words. He starts telling her not to thank him, imagining that she's going to do something bad to him. At that moment, the young lady snaps her fingers. The maidens grab Feng by the arm. They start to drag him back to the mansion. He begs for his life, but it was already too late. Back at the girl's house, we see that she only took him to have tea. The boy's plan was to keep stringing her along as long as possible until the day came that he could leave this mansion. Miss Aya keeps saying words with double meaning as if she were going to make him pay for something. In the middle of the conversation between the two, she says that there is something in him that she admires quite a bit. When a girl is going through trouble, he doesn't think about anything. He puts himself at risk to be able to save them. This was a quality that caught the girl's attention. Feng gets a little embarrassed upon hearing this. The maids outside already start to imagine that Feng is manipulating the young lady. That's why they want to poison our hero's food. They would use that same substance that they put in the glass of that blonde guy who liked Feng's sister. When he was drugged, he attacked the first woman he saw, and I don't know if you remember, he was also kidnapped, and is in the basement of the mansion. They say that they will put it in Feng's soup so that he attacks Miss Aya and they can interrupt this outburst of his. All this because they are afraid or jealous? It's not possible to understand right away. There wouldn't be time to prepare a soup. So they put the poison inside a glass of water. She heads to the room to deliver this poison glass. However, Feng ends up leaving through the door and bumps into the glass. All the liquid is about to fall. Our hero is quite skilled and holds the glass with his hands. He ends up putting the water back into the container. He was quite skilled. He gives an embarrassed smile, saying that he was distracted.